you're shedding layers the whole time. You shed a layer when you leave service, and so then the phone goes away, and then you shed layer when you like leave your keys. And then you shed layer when you just have your one pack. It just simplifies everything. You don't have to worry about anything. Like backcountry canoeing is just the context, it's the setting, and it's a beautiful setting for pretty much any group to come together in. If you can get a few days where you get in the rhythm of either day tripping or like moving camp, a 5-day feels like a month in a good way. People show up, I just see an adventure about to unfold, and that these people are ready and willing to go on an adventure, and that's what I want my life to be made of. When my friends are like, let's go on an adventure, I'll flip coins.
Nice.
One of my biggest decisions ever, I flipped 4 different coins, and they all landed on the way that I wanted to go intuitively. That's what's so pure about being on the road, is it's so many gut reactions. Your mind is actually just being as a tool of like helping you get from point A to point B and figuring stuff out, but you're making decisions based on your gut.
Yeah.
We are our best specialists. We know that there's something up more than a specialist. That thing that came through for me was that giving is receiving. This summer, I realized that it's not a rain check for karma for it to come back at some point, that you're wondering, when's this rain check gonna cash in? I did something nice for someone. It's the knowing and the understanding and the feeling that it's happening. Like it's a reciprocity, like immediately. It's happening at the same time, and you're not resistant of like, I didn't live. You're like, I lived, I was present, and now I'm here.
You did what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, I'm at the end of the video game, I beat the boss, or I did what I was supposed to do, exactly. I lived this life. I've been honoring my inner child lately, and so the big thing that's come through is I like outside more than inside. I like outside more than inside. So now, like when I get up in the morning, I'm pretending I'm just honoring that inner child. So I'm like, brush my teeth, getting in a cold shower, then like getting outside and be like, woo, you know?
Woo! Yeah.
Ow! Yeah, it's special. Yeah. Yeah, nature is where it's at. We all need to spend more time. Okay.
All you need, show up, living, pay attention, your participate, favorite, la 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 life, la 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 life.
Good day, namaste. Welcome to Your Favorite Life. I'm Jeffosaurus Rex, and my goal is to bring you conversations of growth, creativity, and adventure. Hopefully we can shine some light on your path to your favorite life. I'd like to give a shout out to the presenters of this show, the first being a good friend of mine, Derek Clugston, a real estate agent in the Simcoe region. Derek has helped with selling our home, and he's always a pleasure to be around, lightening the mood, keeping things simple, and always bringing some laughs forward. So thank you, Derek. Your Favorite Life is also presented by Kangen Water, a super water that my family and I have discovered from a Japanese ionizing machine. You hook the machine up to your tap water and it gets rid of the chlorine and other junk, and then it goes through this electrical process where it splits into alkalized water and acidic water. So you can drink the different types of alkaline water that's full of antioxidants and helps you hydrate better. And then the acidic water can be used for cleaning and sanitizing. It's very cool. And one of my favorite parts is the highest alkaline water that you can actually soak your fruits and vegetables in to remove the pesticides, the germicides, and the ripening agents. It actually revitalizes the fruits and vegetables. It's really, really neat. So I'm grateful I've discovered Kangen water. Thank you. And if you have any questions about that technology, please reach out. I'd be happy to share. Today's episode, I had the pleasure of learning from adventure guide Chris Kelly from Algonquin, Ontario. Chris shared with me his adventures in nature with his backcountry canoe company, Driftwood Paddle, as well as his transformative moments while traveling the world. Grab your paddle, breathe with the trees, and enjoy the episode. Yep.
Yeah, I'll cut that part out.
Why?
I'm just joking.
The raw organic is
Yeah,
I
I'm
feel
ready.
like what people can relate to, you know?
I'm ready to rock and roll. We're all set up. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, you're the one who initiated this.
Yeah.
So this is the Your Favorite Life podcast with Chris Kelly,
Thank
CK. I love what you did with the name, SEA,
Thank you.
and then KEH.
yeah.
And like where I understood C, but where's the KEH? I like the nickname.
Basically, just phonetically, it sounded right. And then C, I love the C.
Yeah.
Just a different way of going with it. And then K kind of sounds Canadian.
Nice.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, adding a little fun to life. You know, your parents give you names. Sometimes they give you a fun name, and maybe sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
And when you're traveling, like, I bet you can relate how often someone said, "Hey, my name's this. It means this."
Blank. Yeah, yeah.
And
absolutely.
like, I feel like that never happens in Canada.
No, not at all.
Maybe like further north and stuff, but
Mhm.
that gives you the opportunity to be like, "Yo, I'm gonna change my name a bit." Like, that's why I go by Jeffosaurus sometimes.
Yeah.
It's fun, and people are like, catch them off guard.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, yeah. They want to pigeonhole you, but like, how do you pigeonhole a dinosaur? It's like human.
Yeah. So this is we're gonna learn about Chris today, and
Cool.
maybe a bit about Jeff and
100%.
our travel stories. I hopped on a flight all the way to Thornton, Ontario, Canada, and we're in.
Did you make it to cruising altitude?
Yeah, I almost stopped at the 27 diner.
Ooh.
And yeah, we're gonna. I want to know. I saw you on Facebook a few times after you came to my storytelling show a couple years ago, and I've just been following your journey. And I saw in your Facebook title "Adventure Guide," and I thought, like, that's so awesome. It resonated.
Thank you.
And I reached out, and I just wanted to say this quick thing, like how people meet in life. I was thinking about it on the drive over here. Like, sometimes you can, you know, go out to get some food and you end up talking to someone in line and you become friends. Like,
Mhm.
that can happen. And then sometimes, like, you meet people and through other people and through this long line of scenarios. And so I was thinking about, like, how did I meet Chris? I'm like, okay, he came to my Mo Monday show, and I met him because I knew his friend Aaron, who I was recommended. It was Aaron, right?
Yeah.
I recommended Aaron from this lady who worked at Rogers. Someone told me to go to Rogers for my show, and then because they had a show, and then I met that lady because I went to a psychic fair who my sister took me to. So I, like, spun it all back, and it went all the way to, like, my sister, which it was just kind of wild. Like, and then, you know, now we're sitting here and we're doing a podcast. And so I know Tony Robbins says stuff like, oh yeah, like, you know, were you guided? And
Yeah.
so, you know, you were talking about that earlier, like following the steps.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually things will work out if you keep, you know, paying attention. And so I think that's kind of how we're doing this episode right now, how we met, which is neat. And maybe you can comment on, like, you know, maybe how you met being an adventure guide.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
First, it is really interesting that how we met. I totally forgot that my best friend Aaron was involved in it because I thought of the most recent connection with Julie, and if that
Right.
was recommended.
And we have other mutual friends.
Yeah, which is crazy. How I became an adventure guide was, I mean, a story that's still unfolding. It started being an adventure guide from coming back from traveling and wanting to be up at the lake where I'd spent most of my summers, spending time with my brother up there and wanting to live up there and knowing that we needed to find work, being competent in finding work because that was a skill that we needed to cultivate while traveling. And my brother went and started asking like local outfitters about starting a business because we wanted to start one ourselves. Kieran was definitely a driving force in that. And
That like take action guy.
yeah, I was more just I was dating a girl at the time, and it was just enjoying the summer, being home for the first time in a couple of years, and 2.5 years, especially in the summer, and yeah, he asked a local eco retreat that we had grown up close to in our summers about starting a business, and they said come work for us. And so my brother started working there that summer, and then they needed some extra help come September, right around this time actually. And so I did my certification in wilderness first responder, and started working. I guided an eclectic mix of trips that September, like a family group from Belgium, an army training exercise, a high school group, and a youth homeless shelter.
Wow.
And so it was like 4 trips that were very diverse, but really allowed me to feel the love of guiding, of being in nature, of leading people and allowing nature to really have an impact, a lasting impact on them. And for me, it felt like an adventure. Like I had come back from traveling and thought, where am I going to get this adventure? I thought I'd have to book another plane ticket to do so, or at least like hop in a car and do a road trip, and I was able to do it from this place that had shaped me in a lot of ways that I'm still discovering up at Round Lake on the northwest corner of Algonquin.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
And you started a company called Driftwood Paddle.
Yeah, so fast forward, that was 2013, fast forward close to 10 years now. We have, my brother and I worked for that one company for a number of years, and then we also worked for a few others, which helped us understand what we wanted to create, and we started Driftwood Paddle in 2018, in the fall of 2018, and yeah, we're growing organically and having an amazing time doing so, and meeting so many great people.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I think that's such a great way to learn about something, is to like, you worked for another company, like learn the ropes, and is this for me?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, that's great skills to acquire, is to actually do it firsthand.
Mm-hmm.
and then go from there, and then like you said, organically, and then it just, people come into your life and all those different diverse groups. I think that's great. And being Mr. Adventure Guide, that's, I still love that, because I told you that story, right? I was like reading this Canadian bucket list in this book, and this lady like was taking people up a mountain, and she's like, oh yeah, you know, we just go on these trails and then we do yoga at the top of the mountain. And I'm reading this book, and I like looked up, and it's like, I have to quit my job.
Yeah.
Because it just, something resonated, which is kind of neat when that happens in life, where it's just like a light bulb goes on.
Yeah.
And then probably like when you're out in nature and stuff, you start tapping more into that, like
Mm-hmm.
when nature's reflecting to you and talking to you.
Absolutely, it's been such a journey. To the thing that I love about guiding, and especially running my own business, is that I'm allowed to grow myself, and then I can create, let Driftwood grow to fit me, as opposed to a lot of professions, as the job, as you grow, as your position grows, and your personality kind of has to grow around the job in some respects. You grow to the job shapes you, where I'm able to, with Driftwood, to let myself shape the job.
Okay.
Where at the beginning it felt like very much that I was an adventure guide, but I was like a Sherpa, so to speak, in regards to, not to use that word out of context, but I would guide, cook, carry, etc. Where now I'm like identifying my areas and skills that I've picked up along the way, and understanding different ways that I'm able to lead, as well as I want to run a natural movement trip. So start taking natural movement courses and then running those trips, or men's group trips, where I can continue to, as I grow, to just create a trip, because backcountry canoeing is just the context, it's the setting, and it's a beautiful setting for pretty much any group to come together in.
Nice. I was gonna say, like, what's that like? So you get, a group of people sign up, you get an email, and you're like, oh, we want to come on this event. Can you put this trip together for us? We want to go on a canoe trip.
Yes.
And you and your brother will, send them a package. This is kind of our options. And then these people show up.
Yes.
And, this is just one trip. And so now you're going to spend the next 3 days, like, you're probably with them for a lot of the trip too. I'm sure they have like some private time. But yeah, that must be interesting. Like, cause you never know, you really, what's about to develop. Not only do you have to have good people skills, and be a good leader, but you're also like, you're being shaped, like you said. These people are coming to you, and you're gonna take them on this trip. But they're also like bringing their own wild to you. That word just came out, but
yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, I like it. Yeah.
Like, what's that like? Yeah.
It's amazing and exhilarating. I think of early times traveling, hopping on a bus and realizing a lot of the travelers were from North America, and at that time I was quite young. We'd been traveling for quite some time, and all the travelers we had met were non-English speaking first language, and early on it was definitely a really stark contrast. And though it was so amazing traveling through France and Italy, to come onto this bus and find like a bunch of North Americans, mostly Canadians, I just felt like we're already friends, and so
nice.
Yeah, I remember saying, and now I see that as, now that my comfort and skill has grown, I see as just everyone is a friend. But that was a moment where I remember I was one of the younger ones on the bus, because I traveled Europe when I was 19, and a lot of them were traveling after university, or it was a honeymoon, etc., but mostly young people, so to speak. And when I went around the bus, I was like, where are you from? And most people are from Canada. I was like, we're partying tonight. I didn't know what that was going to mean, or what would come of that, but we had a great party that night, all sharing an amazing dinner in this small mountainous town in just outside of Spezia in Cinque Terre, Italy. And first time I ever had wine, and they're served in like these big, huge carafes. But the point of my story is that that's how I see when people show up. I just see an adventure about to unfold, and that these people are ready and willing to go on an adventure. And that's what I want my life to be made of. When my friends are like, let's go on an adventure, I'm super fired up, or I'm usually the one that's creating these adventures. So for someone to come to me and be like, let's do this, I trust you, then it just flows from there, and I just trust the process and trust my skills. And I like to tailor make every trip to the clients, to the group.
Nice. There's so much flexibility and creativity, it sounds like, with Driftwood Paddle. And I love the line, like, we're already friends. I 100% resonate with that. Like, when you go to a hostel, like in Europe, and you are doing something at that moment where you're living a dream, you're traveling through Europe, and you're meeting someone else who's also living their dream.
Yes.
So instantly, like you said, that should be your tagline for your adventure company. We're already friends.
Yeah.
And I remember, just being in a hostel, and like many times walking up the stairs with your big bag, crossing paths with someone on the stairs in the same hostel, and you say, oh, hey, what's your name? Where are you from? You're like, you want to walk and see the city? And they're like, sure.
Yeah.
It's like, that's it. Boom, you're in.
Yeah.
Or it's like, Yeah, people, you're cooking in the little kitchen in the hostel, and like this girl came in one time with like a bottle of wine. She's like, "Want some wine?" I was like, "Sure." Do you want some rice?
Yeah.
And it's
Fantastic.
yeah, and it reminds me of playing hockey too. Like you
Mhm.
join a hockey team, and you've got like 16 instant brothers.
Yeah.
So I think that's funny. Like the people, they're coming to you, ready to go on an adventure,
Mhm.
and you're like, "This is awesome." You have that interest already, which that's how you connect with people initially. It's like you find an interest,
That's it.
and that's neat where they have this same like passion for adventure, and that's like one of my favorite words too. Is so that's such a cool job.
One of your favorite words is passion?
Adventure.
Yeah, adventure. Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah, I think whether it's going on a 3-day, 10-day trip in Algonquin with you and your brother and your other guides,
Mhm.
or doing like trying a new restaurant, like seriously, it's like you can find smaller adventures. And yeah, why don't you talk about like how you got into traveling? Like you and your brother have done a lot of traveling,
Yeah.
and growing up, I guess, in Thornton area, and then you had a camp or cottage in Algonquin
Mhm.
area.
Yeah.
Like, what made you get on a flight and book that ticket? Boom, it's booked. Like
Yeah.
when you're 19 maybe, or was it before that you wanted to go to another country and see what the other side of the ocean looks like?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I could come up with different reasons for it. There's definitely like the catalyst, what led me to Europe and what led me to Australia, my two big trips. I think my parents were always very supportive. They had done a bit of traveling in their upbringing, more so solo. They weren't from wealthy families, and so I think it was just like those were big moments in their lives that when they share stories on an energetic level, it seemed like they were really happy when they shared those stories, and when we'd meet friends that were tied to it, or look at photos. So then that might have been the start of it. We also had a camper van, so we'd go up north to the lake that we now have Driftwood, and stay at my aunt and uncle's place, or go to different Irish dues or Newfie dues and run around and be free, but like live that simple life out of the van of like sandwiches, peanut butter and jam sandwiches, or maybe like soup and grilled cheese on a cold day, and so we just learned to live with little, live that simple life, and then spending time up north on my aunt and uncle's. It was very basic land, and then they eventually built a cottage, but we still always lived in the van or a tent trailer, and then we got our land, and it was virgin, and made it accommodating for a trailer. So again, those were all like skills that we're cultivating just to like survive with like not be reliant on specific things and live uncomfortably, but like find comfort, but find like life in that uncomfort, and just trying to figure things out, and imagination and creativity. And yeah, I was finishing high school, and a friend of mine that we were friends all the way through elementary and high school, but we were just like part of the same clique, but never really hung out one-on-one. We hung out that weekend, happened to go up to his cottage, and I was getting into just biking, and I said, "You should get a bike, we can bike together." And he said his parents really wanted him to go to Europe, and I was like, "Whoa, that sounds crazy. What does that entail?" Yeah, your parents want you to go to Europe. That's amazing.
Amazing parents.
Yeah,
You're going to Europe.
yeah,
You know?
yeah. Like I see that as parents.
It's like if I have kids, like like you have to do a backpacking trip.
Yeah. Oh, 100% for sure. Yeah, like just to see like what it adds, right, to your child. Like again, I think everything is based on experiences. When I have kids, just get them to experience so much, and it doesn't have to be like all these like consumerism things of of constantly going to things that cost money. It's like going and walking out in the rain, playing in mud. But yeah, going to the movies and Blue Jay games and those things as well. But just experiencing everything, you know, getting in some cold water, being out in the heat, you know, just working with everything and treating my children like they're young adults in a sense, like being very playful, but at the same time, like, how do you feel right now, you know? Get them to honor their feelings and their emotions. So I ended up saying, well, maybe I can go to Europe. We started in Ireland, which was a nice launch pad because I had family there.
They spoke English there?
They spoke English, exactly.
That's why I went to Portugal my first time one of my first times to Europe, because I was like, heard they speak pretty good English there. I'll start there.
Nice, yeah.
So keep going unless you went to Ireland. That's like great travel advice. It's like, if you're gonna go somewhere, like if it's your first like big trip, like, yeah, don't go somewhere where like, you know, you look at the signs and it's just their language and there's no like English underneath. Like some countries, you know, have both. And like
for sure.
Like when I was in Poland, like yeah, it was harder to speak English with some people there.
Yeah.
Versus, you know, if you go to Germany, and I love Poland, just saying, like, sometimes the English is more commonly spoken. So
for sure.
Yeah, you went to Ireland.
Yeah,
family there, another bonus.
Yeah, like to comment on that, I feel like it's like the next level. You can skip that level and you'll make it by, but it's definitely like a more just smooth way of transitioning into like fending for yourself and thriving as opposed to surviving is to go somewhere that you speak English.
Right, yeah. Don't take too big of a leap.
Yeah.
Or choose your battles. Like, know 100%. When you can take a big leap, and you're probably gonna fail, but at least you're not gonna like fail miserably. But
fail forward.
Fail forward. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. So I had family there, and I had never been, and heard a lot of stories about Ireland because my dad's family is from there, and so family picked us up from the airport, really treated us like gold, took us around, and then we got taken to another area where I had other family, and then we traveled some of Ireland on our own, which was like the start of it, trying to find like accommodations in the pouring rain with our backpacks and feeling like a little like out of our comfort zone. I remember us being like a little kind of frustrated, but figuring it out, getting on a ferry to go across to France.
Nice.
And it was like crazy rough seas. I remember there was like a sailing regatta we heard after that was happening at the same time, like some serious like rescuing had to take place. And I remember we paid the extra money for a bed or bedroom, and so it was like real tiny room, but like way down in the hall, which is good because you have less like rocking, which causes seasickness, and so you're like down like basically below sea level, and it was still rough down there. But I remember being up in like the main area where everyone's chilling, and it was rocking, and all of a sudden, like, people started puking everywhere. And so we like scampered down to our room, and I remember kind of laying like flat, like kind of, I don't know, I'm picturing like a dog in a boat, like trying not to like slip around. I'm laying on my belly and it was just jam myself in, but had an amazing sleep. Woke up to like the pounding on the door from one of the boat attendees saying, "Get out," and walking through, and then being in France in this little town, Rosselair.
They didn't have like a buzzer back then or something. It's like, I mean, it's probably only like 10 years ago, right?
Yeah.
It's like there was a guy, he had to go to every door and like the whole ferry.
Pretty much, yeah.
Get off the ship.
Yeah.
That was his job.
We're going back soon. Yeah. We didn't really have any intentions of where to go, and it worked out super well, like any plans. We got to Paris, and my buddy Mark's like ex-girlfriend was modeling there, and so they hung out, like a couple 19-year-olds. I think she was 18 at the time, in Paris, like pretty special. I think he was trying to rekindle the relationship, but it was just beautiful to be there, like to hang out under the Eiffel Tower, to wander around, to be free. I remember the first night we almost slept on a park bench because couldn't find a place to stay. Yeah, and found a hotel that the guy said, if you go everywhere and can't find a place, so we ended up back there at 2 a.m. We're like, seriously? So he gave us this room that actually had a view of the Eiffel Tower, but it was like completely under renovations, like paint cans and like bed sheets like up, like for, yeah, but it was great. From France to Cannes, Monaco, Nice, back to Cannes because we liked it. Obviously there's so many stories riddled within there.
That's cool when you go back to a place you'd already been to. Like,
Yeah.
Always, like, remember I had the option in Slovenia, and one group was going to Croatia for the day and the night, and it was like a 1 hour train ride or something. And so I could have done that, or like went and saw this random blues band like at this pool place, and I was like, I don't know, there's something about this town, and I actually came back to this town for the second time, so I decided to stay instead of going to a new country, which was kind of weird. And it was like great choice. Like, had an amazing night. This blues band was incredible. It was just like such a very like local night, where it was very authentic to that small town. And but yeah, it's kind of neat. It's not always about like novelty, but also like when you're traveling, like when you do find stuff, that places and people that feel good, like make sure you're diving deep into those places while you're there. Yeah.
So well said, and I resonate completely because that's definitely been a theme of my traveling, is going back to places over and over again, or spending a lot of time diving deep in a country. Like when I went to Asia, for example, I spent 2 months in Vietnam, where I definitely could have covered most of Southeast Asia in that time.
Right.
But like, no regrets. And actually, when I think of Asia, like, I think of wanting to go back to it. And it's not, you got to like check yourself to make sure it's not like a comfort thing, like, oh, I know that place, and so I'm just going to go back.
Yeah.
There are obviously other places, but there's something to be said. It's like getting to know someone else new, you know, rather than you already know a bit of the culture, and now there's areas that you want to explore a bit more. It's like building a relationship with a country.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. How does one check themselves? I like that.
What do you mean?
You're like, you know, you got to check yourself, like, and make sure it's the right move. So I'm curious, like,
how does one check themselves?
Yeah.
I think it's just like,
or how do you check yourself? Like, when you have to make a decision. Take a second. Like, I'll think about it too.
Yeah, I feel like the path I'm on now, it would talk about like tapping into like your true nature, but I think back then it was a gut reaction, and I think that's what's so pure about being on the road, is it's so many gut reactions. Your mind is actually just being as a tool of like helping you get from point A to point B and figuring stuff out, but you're making decisions based on your gut.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what traveling is, why it's so addicting and so satisfying and delicious, because you're living that true self.
Yeah. Perfect. I was gonna say, I've learned now, being 31, and when I was traveling to Europe at 24,
yeah,
like, you'll appreciate this. It's like I went to Europe at 24, and, you know, stayed in a ton of different couches with people I didn't know, and I think at times I would leave my passport like under the rug at their place or something. I was kind of just, I didn't want anybody to steal it, or that I didn't want to lose it, or sometimes my wallet or whatever. And then fast forward to when I went to Nepal like 2 or 3 years ago, the first day I got there, I was like, do I lock up my stuff at the hostel? Like, are you supposed to do that? Like, or do I bring my passport with me when I'm walking around? Like, what if I lose it or something? Like, and I couldn't remember what I did when I was in Europe. I was like, I feel like I didn't even think about this. Like I said, I would leave my passport under the rug sometimes, but the point of the story is, I feel like when I was traveling when I was younger, like you're saying, it was more of a gut reaction, and I was able to not overthink things.
Yes.
And I was much more in the flow. Whereas now, it's when you're at a social interaction or social group, you know, you're like, how's my body language? You're like, I'm not don't interrupt. Like, you know, wait till they're done talking, right? You got all that, you're thinking a lot, which is great. You're like, you're an adult. You're like
Yes.
being polite. And whereas when I was younger, I feel like, yeah, maybe I did interrupt more than I do now, but at least I was living a little bit more naturally and spontaneously.
Yes.
Which I love, and I'm trying to, cultivate that more being as I get older too, like finding a balance. But I just thought that was funny because I definitely was a lot more free thinking and free feeling traveling in Europe when I was 24.
Yes.
Versus doing stuff nowadays where, you know, I have to check myself, like do a scan. But by that question, unless you want to comment on that.
The one thing that came up for me was, I feel like when you are living that like kind of kindred spirit, when you're saying that you're just free, I'm picturing like being at the beach or camping, and you just got everything in your tent, and you're just like, I want to go swimming now. You're not thinking about, well, what am I gonna wear, and like, what if this gets wet? It's just going. And I feel like, maybe you interrupted more, but if you're coming from a place of freedom and love, etc., as opposed to like where I feel like when people interrupt now, it's a lot has to do with like the mind like needing to feel heard, to feel to like cultivate appreciation or recognition, where back in the day it was just like you being you, and so there's a different energetic exchange that happens when you're just being your true nature self. I think you can still be polite and be a bit wild. Sure.
Great word. And being playful and being wild and being a kid, like tapping back into, it's good. I remember when I came home from Europe, that was something that came up for me on my trip, was I wanted to tap back into what I was like as a kid. So I started going through like all these old home videos, and we're at the house that you grew up in, right? So because we forget that. Even today I was at my business group that I go to once a week, and just for like 5 seconds I was looking around the room, and sometimes I try and picture them like what they were like when they were 5 years old. And we're just all grown up now. They're like, oh yeah, that was like the really loud kid in class, and like that was the really smart kid, and the quiet kid or whatever. But
that's awesome that you're doing that. I feel like I've been doing the same lately. It's super fun, like, because you can see the inner child in people, like with the little things.
And they're just in different bodies, and I guess when I meant like how do you check yourself, I guess I was referring to like you like to journal right now, and you were doing some journaling or reflection. I guess like I would say, if someone asked me to go to Europe about a year ago, and I was like, it was a tough decision. I was like, should I go? Is this right? And it was a tricky decision. I didn't know what was right.
Yes.
And so as in like check yourself, I guess that's what I was referring to. And what I did was, I did a 45-minute meditation. I've never meditated for that long, but I was like, this is a big decision. I'm just gonna go sit for 45 minutes, close my eyes and breathe and see what comes up.
Yeah.
After the first 20 minutes, it's usually the typical stuff that you're like thinking about, but then like you were talking about earlier, like that song came up for you.
Yes.
So once you kind of pass that threshold, it's interesting what comes up. So I did like a meditation. I think I asked some people what they thought, and what else did I do? It's how to make decisions. Give yourself a deadline. But how do you check yourself? Go into nature. Like what do you do for yourself to validate a decision or feeling? Like
I've been notoriously indecisive, But like we spoke about it upon reflection, I do still tend to listen to my intuition. Something recently I did my human design, which is, what would you call it? Just like a modality. It like combines a lot of different philosophies, from like Eastern philosophies to different religions, and you put in your date of birth and time of birth, location, and it tells you basically your design. And it spoke to the fact that I am very intuitive, and so I've been trying to honor that recently, where the first thing that I feel is what I act on, because it kind of precedes the mental chatter. And like we spoke about earlier, mental chatter is calculations, etc. Whereas if you just listen, it's like, hell yeah, then just give it a yes, and then you can calculate, okay, how it can work this out, scheduling. But it's already a yes, it's not allowing your mind to make the decision. In the past, like I do all sorts of things. Like I still use, like, I'll write, I'll do poetry. I've done like some poetry for some big decisions, where it just starts with something, like one line that just turns into something, and then I'll flip coins.
Nice.
One of my biggest decisions ever, I flipped 4 different coins, and they all landed on the way that I wanted to go intuitively. That my parents were supportive either way, but my parents from halfway across the world were definitely, hey, I was making really good money, paying off student loans, and they're like, like, we love this adventure that you have the opportunity, but also you can pay off your loans in like a few months. So I can understand where they're coming from, but the coins didn't lie, and I went. But yeah, so all sorts of different modalities.
I don't think I've ever flipped a coin. That's, maybe for not too grand of a decision, but yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Or I mean, hey, if that's how you live your life, flip a coin, go
For
after
sure.
it. Part of you, it's like a decision. It's when I had said I got asked to go to Europe, like a part of me wanted to go for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, like there's value in going, but a part of me also didn't want to go.
Yeah.
And so, it's nice, at least, that's where the indecisiveness comes from. Like you look at there's value in both, and no matter what decision you make, it's just a different path you're going to take. Like maybe you'll end up in Europe anyway.
Potentially.
It's like,
yeah. Absolutely. Like I ended up getting a good paying job when I got home a few months later, and was able to pay off my student loan. So
yeah.
I think it is nice though to sit with things for a while. Like try not to, like, if you're going in circles, recognize that.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to like use too much energy up. But yeah. Knowing yourself.
I wanted to say I can't believe this makes so much sense, but I said it to you when we were out for dinner. I said, like, when you're playing a video game and you get to the end and you're at the boss, and the first attempt at the boss, you always get so far.
Yeah.
And then you're at the boss, and like you almost kill the boss, and like you just need to hit him one more time, but he gets you, like in Donkey Kong or Mario.
Yeah.
And so then you go back and you got to start the level again, and you got to beat the little bosses, like, to get to the big boss. But after that first round, like, it takes like 10 attempts to just get back to the boss.
Yeah.
Because you start overthinking it, and you disrupted the flow, and you start calculating, and you're too excited, and you want to just get there or something. But
yes.
I just thought that was funny about video games, and like how that could be in any comparison to. I love what you said. Yeah, like your first feeling. And yeah, Malcolm Gladwell, I think, talked about that in Blink, the book. He said, I said that too. It's like, okay, if this was the Matrix, like, and I was like here's the red pill, here's the blue pill, you got 5 seconds.
Yeah.
And like after 5 seconds, like you're gonna make a decision.
Oh yeah.
And it's interesting, like the one that you would make, because it's like if you don't make the decision, like that's not allowed. But
No.
you gotta pick one.
Well,
like,
I think that's a one of the issues in society is that people choose not to choose.
yeah.
But
that must be a good exercise. You have like 10 questions, and then like you go through them. You got 5 seconds to answer each one.
Ooh.
And then that probably helps you tap into your intuition. Like,
yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
That would be a good one. I wanted to circle back to what you were saying. About the boss. I feel like a drop of self-doubt can cloud the water of confidence so much so like that it takes a while for that like doubt to settle, and like beating the video games, etc. And then when you go into it like where it's like something new and you're kind of innocent to it, but you have the skills, then you can work your way through it, and then that self-doubt creeps in. It's I think it's a testament to like our capabilities of our subconscious. Like our subconscious is super capable. For example, I did a natural movement course called MoveNat recently, and the trainer was amazing, and he spoke about that in regards to when we were doing precision jumping, and I felt like I would like run up to it and then like kind of stutter step, and he said, you don't need to stutter step right before. You can stutter step like 10-15 feet back and allow your subconscious to calculate everything, and it'll do it. And just being empowered that way was amazing. He says it's like your subconscious is a supercomputer, and when you let your mind in, it's like a DOS 2.0 like OG computer that when they work together, it just lags it all up and it slows everything down and causes glitches, like, and that's what it feels like in your body, or when you're like, oh, why did I fall in that hole?
Glitch,
yeah.
Why did I fall in that hole?
I had to, like, you're like running fast in Mario, and then you just gotta slide your finger to jump and like in the hole, you know. So like just trusting and recognizing that intuition and that subconscious ability, and staying rooted in that, and again keeping the mind as a tool, a useful tool, and not as a pilot.
Yeah, that's really well described. Like finding that flow state, it makes me think about playing an instrument. Like I never did this with any of my dragon boat teams, but I had done it in the past, and I saw it in the movie, this rowing movie, where the coach told them to all close their eyes, like when they're paddling.
Yeah.
Because they have to do it together, and then if you close your eyes, like then you really have to like kind of turn your mind off.
Wow.
and feel. Good strategy to, and like you said, it's a tool. So, you know, use your mind when you're getting organized and you're trying to organize your space and, you know, your friends and your time, and evaluate your life. And then also when you're having fun and going on adventures and tapping into nature, like feel, and then nature will speak to you, or energy, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like you have any moments on, this is kind of a question out of the blue, like any moments traveling that changed your perspective, made you someone you met, or something that you didn't think you'd ever do, or like it's just weren't expecting, and you had this revelation. It's anything, any growing experiences traveling, like
I think like the state in which I grow is like climbing a mountain. It's just slow and steady. So I definitely could think of a lot of things. The one thing that came up right away, and I try to always honor that, is when I was living in the Solomon Islands. I was at the last time I was there, I was living with a family.
And where's the Solomon Islands?
It's like a group of islands. If you go up the east coast of Australia, then you go across from the top, you get to Papua New Guinea, and then and onto Java. So to the left, if you're going west, it turns into the Indonesian islands.
Okay.
And to the right, it turns into the Papua New Guinea islands, like the mainland, and then Papua New Guinea islands, and then from there it turns into the Solomon Islands.
Okay. Because
Yeah.
my mind obviously needed to know where the Solomon.
Yeah, of course.
Or my heart, like I was curious. I never heard of that. You're in Solomon Islands.
Yeah, that's how I originally got there. Was I sailed there for a different reason. I wanted to learn how to sail, but yeah, this is like to speak to the fact of like building a relationship with the country and the people in it. This was my 4th or 5th time going back in like so many months, like a year or less, and so I just took my flight. I'm like, okay, I'm going back. It was kind of a haywire. I had missed a flight due to connections, etc., and which actually is funny because we were talking about missing flights, and I was there. Fast forward, I'm living in this little village with like mom, dad, 3 kids. The father's parents lived in another little hut, and the impactful story, besides for the whole time, was amazing. I was there for 3 months at that point. I stayed with this family for a month, and it was an uncertain amount of time I'd be staying with them. I was waiting for this priest to go hike through the highlands because a friend of mine had an older friend that had done humanitarian work there, had said, bring clothes for the people of the highlands. And so I brought like a bunch of like sweaters and pants, etc. And so I was waiting for that, for the priest to be ready to go for this walk, because it's a very precarious and complex journey up into the highlands, and people are either coming down and going back up to get supplies, or they're just like, they've already been down and they're going back up. So to get through would be difficult. I mean, I probably would do it now and just like ask, hey, who's going to this village? And just stay in a village until someone's going to that village. Actually, first time thinking about that, that'd be amazing. And so I stayed with this family, and I remember that someone had passed away in the village next door, and so we were all going to this funeral, or it wasn't so much a funeral, it was more just the families getting together, and there was a lot of crying and being there for the family. And so the language barrier was interesting there, because they spoke a pidgin English, because there was a lot of influence from the war. It was a big area of content, what's the word for it? Basically that area, the Japanese and the Americans both wanted it. The Japanese wanted it because it was within airstriking distance of Australia. And so it was the biggest ocean battle, like sea-to-sea battle, that they say the world's ever seen out in front. It's called Iron Bottom Sound out in front of Guadalcanal. So there's a pidgin English spoken that unites the whole country, which is amazing, because otherwise there's like, I think, hundreds of different tribal languages throughout the country.
Wow.
Yeah. And so you can pick up pidgin English because it's quite a simple language of like only 800 words, and one word will mean a variety of different things. So I was able to pick it up, but it would still be I wasn't still 100% sure what we were talking about, but I could also got a sense for just feeling it from being in like the Asian countries that I didn't know any words. And so we went to this funeral, or this gathering, and I asked where Dennis was, which was the grandfather, and he just said, Callisto, which was the father, said he's just at home. And I'm like, why is that? And he's always watching your things. And so what I realized in that culture is that there was no like trying to make anyone feel guilty. It was just matter of fact. If you asked for something or asked to do something, it was either like a yes or a no. Or if we're doing something, just anything, where I like related it to how we operate in Western culture, where it's so much pleasantries that it's kind of, it's just such a waste of time, and like you feel like if someone asks you a question that you just don't want to say no, because unfortunately not, and give a reason, which is like, it's crazy, I think. And that it didn't dawn on me until I had this interaction that not only did Dennis stay and watch my things, which was super kind, but it was just, it is what it was, you know. They stayed back, and he stayed back to watch my things, which I didn't ask him to or anything, and that would have been a perfectly good reason why he wasn't there, and he probably went down to the village the next day, and it was beautiful. It was that simple way of living, of just saying no or yes, or they're doing that. And at first I felt bad. I'm like, no, he should be here. And just the way, again, the energy, the way that Callisto said, like, no, that's just the way it is. Like, almost like, you don't get worked up, because like, I don't want you being upset, you know?
Yeah.
And so that was a big shift, and it was one of those things that's taken me like some time, and like how I changed my language when people ask about, hey, are you available here? And I just say, no, I'm not. Thanks for the opportunity, or like I might add that in it, but not saying like,
having to give a reason.
yeah, like beating around the bush and be like, oh, unfortunately not, I would have really loved to, or it's,
but I had to go do this
Yeah.
thing, so you make them feel like that you're not saying no because you don't actually want to be there.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah. And then in the world like we live in now, where we have like so many friends on Facebook, and there's like lots of stuff happening, and you do have to say no.
yeah,
It's like you want to be at everything,
for sure.
but you're like, yeah, no, I can't be there because I'm at my cousin's birthday party. And I'm not,
Yeah,
like,
or you just say I'm not available.
Yeah.
And the thing is like,
I love that.
it's so refreshing. And the thing is it's just like we were talking about, well, I was talking about a buddy yesterday with working with vulnerable youth, is that you don't need to butter anything up. Your actions show. So like the next time you're like, yeah, I'm available, and you show up and you're there, there starts to be like a trust built, you know, like this person's gonna not show up when they're not unable to, and they're gonna show up when they are. So it's not this like fluff, like, oh, they might come if they're feeling like it, etc. And sorry, the one thing, like thinking about things that really changed me is just like I have this amazing trust in humanity. And oftentimes people want to ask about traveling, and they ask like, what's the scariest thing that happened to you? And really nothing, to be honest with you. And it's like that guy Callisto, I was just on the boat with him going out this like passenger cargo ferry, and he said, where are you staying? I said, I don't know. And he said, you're staying with me. And like I just stayed with him and his family for a month. Like, and then right after, I thought they would just keep living, and I was in the capital, and I ran into him, which was like a 17-hour boat ride. Oh, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm working on this boat now because I want to save money for the kids' school. And I ran into the wife who was like gone to see her parents in like a different province, because like the women always leave their area to live where the man's from. And so just realizing that their life, they probably stopped their life. Not stopped, but like they flowed through their life with me in it. Be like, he's our guest, we're gonna take care of him, and then they went off and did their stuff. But like the amount of people that just open their doors with, and knowing that I'm like a Westerner, and that I definitely have more opportunity, etc., but not expecting anything of that, and really would treat me more like I'd have to oftentimes say like, no, like I'm eating the same as you guys, or I'm sleeping, you're not giving me your bed, like I'm sleeping on the floor, and the resistance there, them wanting to be accommodating to almost a fault. And that was so humbling, that to treat people like just because someone's not your best friend or your family, that you can still treat people like you love them, you know, that they are an amazing being and a special person that's passing through your life, and you have an opportunity to really like share moments and serve them. And I really felt taken care of while I traveled.
Yeah, I felt that a lot too in different cultures where
You did, eh?
they're like, me and my sister were in Barbados, and this
Together, you traveled with your sister?
yeah,
Cool.
we went to Barbados, and we actually met a Barbadian friend I'm not sure if they're called Barbadians.
I feel like that's kind of like
But
Anchorman, Barbadian,
and met an amazing human
cool
from Barbados.
Yeah.
And she was also hosting this couple from Austria, and I think we had just eaten, me and my sister, and they were making like sandwiches or something. They only had like 2 sandwiches or something, I forget what it was. And they're like, oh, you should eat with us. And I was like, no, we just stayed, it's okay, you've only got 2 sandwiches. And me and my sister weren't eating a lot either, because it was we were being mindful of our spendings.
Yes.
And I didn't want to use the word expensive. So but they were so like, no, like they like cut their sandwich into like 4s.
Oh my
and they're
God.
like, you have to eat this.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I was like, wow, that's so kind of you. And same thing in Poland, like the one girl was like, no, like I'll sleep on the couch, like you can have my bed, like we treat our guests like royalty.
Yeah.
And there's like resistance from me, right?
Yeah.
I love like the people pleasing thing. Like I do that a lot, and it's helpful. Like when you're saying, someone messages you and you say, oh, I can't be there because I am doing this other thing, and
Yes.
you're like telling them that so that they're like, oh, like Jeff's like, he's not just, he actually does like me or whatever.
Yes,
But
yeah.
it is like a people pleasing thing, right?
Yeah,
And, like,
yeah.
I guess that's helpful in one way, but at the same time, it's it can be, you can go too far.
Yes,
I guess.
I think there's the levels of it. I think like saying what you're doing like makes sense, but the ones where you're just like really fluffing it up, like
Yeah.
I would have been there, but like this and this. It's
Yeah.
like, you don't have to say that. It's like
Yeah.
it's cool, bro. Like yeah.
Yeah, it's like there's so many things that happen in the summertime. It's like, oh yeah, I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah, where it's like and oftentimes the person maybe just doesn't want to go, so like just say like I'm just not feeling it,
Yeah. It's okay.
Yeah.
Like,
The thing that you're saying about the Barbados thing or the couch thing.
couchthing.com.
Yeah, couchthing.com. That's awesome. Is the accepting of what people are giving you, because that's another thing that I learned from traveling, is that is, they are so happy to serve.
Yeah.
And so accepting it rather than being like no, and I've taken that back into my day-to-day. When someone offers me something, I might say, are you sure? And yes, and I'll take it. And maybe inside they might have just been offering it, but chances are they want to give it, and like I feel like the energetic exchange is best if I accept it,
Yeah.
Here, have this peach. Oh really, are you sure? Yeah, okay. And then if I can also tune in, like they're looking over at me and say, you want to bite? Or like, actually, let's share it. And then like, just like feel it out. But rather than not accepting, I think it's always best to accept, like whether it be a compliment, whether it be a gift, whether it be the comfy or bed, it's, you can say once, no, I'm honestly perfectly fine here. And then they're like, no, I really insist. I'm like, okay, I'll do it then.
Yeah, it's like a disservice. Like like how many times does somebody ask, like at least me, they're like, oh, do you need help with that? Like I'm moving a bunch of stuff in my car. I'm like, nah.
Yeah.
I got it.
Exactly.
Don't touch my stuff. Like,
Yeah.
I have to do it in a certain way. You're probably gonna drop it. It's gonna break into a million pieces. Like obviously that's not gonna happen. But in my mind, it's like you're gonna mess something up. Like,
Yeah.
But no, it's like, if they want to be helpful, people like I mean, most of the time, people are. Yeah, I was just thinking about what you said earlier, but in those situations, like when somebody asks if they can help you, like yeah, of course, thank you.
Yeah,
like
absolutely. Because by doing it, it's not like I'm burdening them. You're actually helping them because they're offering something, and I feel like giving is receiving. So if someone's giving to you, they're also receiving. Like they're feeling like connection. They're feeling like they're capable and of being there for someone, Because at home, maybe it's a situation where they feel like that they're not able to satisfy and to be helpful. So
Right.
yeah.
Good point.
Mm-hmm.
You never know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because I think people are a lot different around people that are strangers. Like people can be a bit more free and have this less rigidity when they're around people that don't have they don't have like this grooved out existence with, like.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's the one way of getting on the bus with all the Canadian people and you say, these are all my friends.
Mm-hmm.
There's also the fact, like, when you're in another country and someone had a completely different life than you and you're able to find, like, you both feel that, I guess, but somehow it creates a flexibility because you're like, what's something that just came to my mind is like a few times when I was traveling, and you mentioned it earlier, like I would talk to this guy in Nepal and his English he was learning, and so it was pretty tricky to understand exactly what he was talking about all the time because like you'd only kind of catch every third or fourth word.
Yeah.
And so you'd be like putting together, like I'm not making fun of him, it's just
No.
you're very, on another subject, you're like very focused, like when you're traveling and listening to someone who's speaking a different English than you, and you're very focused with your ears and trying to make sure you're paying attention because you're aware. You don't want to constantly say, oh, like, can you repeat that? So when this person is, I'm only understanding every third or fourth word, I have no idea how much he's understanding of me too. And I think typically it's easier, I think I found when I've asked people, it's easier for them to understand versus actually speaking it.
Yes.
That's probably more common. But still, like, I don't know how much, and how fast am I speaking? I think traveling, that helps. Like when you're talking to people from another country, like to slow down your speech a little bit.
For sure.
Unless like they tell you like you don't have to speak slowly. But,
yeah. It's like a fine line not to sound like you're patronizing them.
Yeah.
So I try and be like almost like talk with actions. Like it's like trades, like if I'm saying food or like driving or time, like doing like those universal signals that really help.
I want to get back to the rigidity thing too. That was really interesting that you said like how we can be more rigid with our own culture sometimes
and our own
like,
people, like I see how some people that I know are like around their family, and then if you see them like out, how they can feel a little bit more loose,
Yeah.
And in regards to like just being a bit more free to be them, and that's not making any assumptions, but it's just, I think that's tying back into traveling is like when you're around someone that you're never going to see again, it's not like you act out in a poor way. You're almost like a better version of yourself because there's not like your mind's not like making these calculations. Well, remember you did that in front of them, and
absolutely.
Remember they said that or da. It's just like blank slate, blank canvas. I can just be me. That's why a lot of people actually like. They actually have an alter ego when they travel, because they can just be someone else. They don't have to be like, oh, I'm the corporate guy, this, or I can even...
I'm that guy who wet myself in kindergarten.
Yeah.
Like, why don't you go pee your pants again, Greg?
Oh, God.
That was in grade 2. It's like, people don't forget.
Yeah. For sure. I asked my kindergarten teacher first day to, like, can you wipe my bum? She's like, we don't do that here. I'm like, all right, I guess we gotta figure this out.
Don't do that.
Yeah. Excuse me, miss. But
I keep thinking this thing's gonna fall.
yeah, keep squeaking. I wonder if it's gonna pick up the mic. But
It probably won't. But
yeah,
I was gonna say.
about the rigidity. Yeah.
Yeah. With it would be neat if you could wake up like each day and have that fresh slate, like you can.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
if you can practice it and be, as long as people aren't bringing up the past and making you remember things that like were mistakes and or learning lessons and
Yeah.
like, but trying to do that in the present with likely the culture that you're around, which is probably a similar culture unless you're living abroad.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you are traveling or spending time with people in your own community who are acquaintances or strangers, like you can kind of be a fresh slate. And I found that fun when I was in Europe. Like every new person I met, it was like a new date. It was like, oh, it really helped me get to know me.
Yeah.
Like because I was just meeting a new person every like third day, and then I would like spend the day with them, and like it was just funny because I would say goodbye and then I'd start walking away, and I'm like, all right, well here we go, like on to the next adventure.
Yeah.
And then like here's Jeff like going to meet somebody else, and like I started realizing like how you start really seeing your patterns of how when I first meet people, how I warm people up with like just trying to be a little goofy and like, I'm like kind of a goofy guy. Like,
Yes.
But by doing that over and over and over again, it was really helpful to practice it and then to recognize it.
Yeah.
And I mean that's just meeting more people in general and like judging people's energies and like. But like you must have met a lot of people too. I don't know what else to say about the rigidity.
No, for sure.
I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
We are. I'm too. Like I can be rigid with like my neighbors, for instance. Like
parents even.
I wish I could like. I wish I could. And I say this. This is like, if I had, it'd be cool to have friends that were like, yo, this month, like I dare you to like go over to your neighbor's house and be like, do you want to come over for a barbecue? Like,
Oh man.
and hey, some people out there like they're tight with their neighbors.
Yeah.
Like, and I always joke like, hey, we're going out of town. We got to get someone to watch our cats, and you call the person at the other side of town to do it.
Yeah.
When it's like, why don't you just ask your neighbors? And it's
100%.
like, I don't know them.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah. Oh, that's definitely a big theme that I'm always chewing on, because I feel like everyone lived in the city for a while, and it was like kind of fun to be in the city when Toronto was smaller, I think.
Yeah.
And then the city got big, people moved to like suburbia. These towns had like big community experiences. You knew your neighbors. There's street parties, garage sales. Like we had Christmas tree burnings and all sorts of like stuff that like united everyone. And then slowly
fences got thicker.
Yeah.
And like I noticed these new houses in Georgina, they had like the hole fences, whatever you call them. Like instead of wooden fences, they're like the metal. They all have holes in them, just like a.
Oh, like the metal fence.
Yeah, where you can see through them.
Yeah.
And they're shorter too.
Yeah.
And I think they're just temporary.
Yeah.
But we were in the backyard, and I'm looking around like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Like, yes, on one side, like you don't have privacy, but the other side, I was like, these people are like, we're hanging out in the backyard. Like we're right in their backyard too.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
just this like one little small fence.
That's it.
This is so much more inviting.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I said, it is nice to have the privacy. So, but I just noticed that was funny. It encourages communication.
Yeah.
Just like those tables at restaurants, right? Like the Mo Mondays, the communal tables.
Yeah.
And I was gonna say something about, you were talking about the street parties and
Like people moving from the city to the country and being connected, having street parties.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, thank you. I was gonna say, when I was throughout the summer having staff for the first time with my corporate recess dragon boat business, and our business is all about team building, like taking companies onto the boat and doing a team bonding, bringing them together. And I was very focused on that throughout the season, like making sure I was promoting myself and people knew about this great opportunity. And I kind of like I made sure we had like a little team party with my staff at the beginning of the season, but I would have wished we had went out a few more times like throughout the summer, because it's kind of a shorter season. But I just remember like towards the end of the season I pulled a CK, and like after the one shift it was like 9 o'clock, I was like, hey, do y'all want to go out for a beer and like get some food? There was like 5 of us there, and they're like, sure. And I was kind of surprised. I thought it was like a weeknight. I thought they would have said, some of them would have said no at least, but like all of them came out. We just went out for dinner, and it wasn't just like, you know, order your food, chat, and when the bill comes they leave. Like after the bill's paid, like we stuck around after, and it was really nice. Like it was quality of time, and I actually felt the bonding. I was like, this is happening, and like this is so beneficial and important. And the point of the story is like also just creating that. Mm-hmm. So whether it's your neighbors or, you know, you initiating this, like, making sure you're taking enough initiative in life to, because you can create whatever you want, and those bonding moments are so important. Like I'm almost tying it back into what we're talking about, being flexible, like not being rigid and going and spending. I mean, that would bring it back to Driftwood Paddle. It's like when you said that, you're like, yeah, you know, the one night is nice. Is this where you said 1 night is nice, but 2 nights is where the sweet spot is, or was it 2 and then
like 3 days is like what we usually offer minimum, because spending that full day, it allows like the mind to relax, and allows like the true nature to come out, because it's not like the mind's calculating, okay, I just have to get through this one night and then we're gonna be leaving. So I just gotta get in there, set up my tent, and then get through. You know, that's like the comfort zone, the mind. Whereas like 3 days is what we consider the bare minimum. Though we do 1 days, and I think that Kieran and I have the skills to allow people to relax and get.
I don't know why I'm laughing.
I like it. To get the experience out of it, but 3 days. Like you get that full day. You're waking up in nature. You're spending the whole day in nature. Yeah. What are you thinking about? Like pooping in the woods or something? Like,
I'm just thinking like, no, it's just beautiful. Like it's so true. Like if you go for a week on a trip, and like the first day, like, or the night before that, you gotta pack, and your mind is important. You gotta think about, what do I gotta bring? What time do I gotta be up? And like your mind's on. Then you get there the first day, you gotta unpack, and then you're like you're checking out your surroundings, and you're like, everything's new and novel, which is awesome. Yeah. But you know, you're just opening everything up slightly, and then by the time you finally get settled, that's when you want a few days, if you can, that's when the sweet spot happens. For sure. Because then again, you're like, okay, well now I gotta pack up my stuff. Like, what time do we gotta leave at? Like, and you start planning ahead, which is important. But that's why I always said when people would go to Europe, like, again, how lucky are we to like be able to go to Europe for more than a week? Yeah. It's like, I'm always like, if you go to Europe, like, try and go for more than a week. Because like, it's a long flight. Or anywhere in the world, it's like long flights. So the first day and last day on the week. So really, it's only 5 days, and then by the time you settled, you're already on the 3rd or 4th day. Yeah. So try and get 10 days if you can. But same with your paddling. Like, for sure, like even 5 days, like that's what we usually say is our sweet spot. Because like you're shedding layers the whole time. You shed a layer when you leave service, and so then the phone goes away, and then you shed layer when you like leave your keys. Nice. You shed layer when you just have your one pack, and like everything gets packed into one bag, into a bunch of bags, but like you don't see it till you hit campsite, and then you have just like a dry bag of like stuff that you might need on the way, like a snack, water bottle, an extra layer if you get cold, you know, or to take off a layer, raincoat.
And so it just simplifies everything. You don't have to worry about anything. Like we have the safety plans all worked out. We know where we're going, and we're always open to like to sense like, oh, some like I think it's time for us to take a swim. And if you want to take a swim, then sweet. And so that's first day, and so that already peels a bunch of layers off. Then you have that full day. And if you can get a few days where you get in the rhythm of either day tripping or like moving camp, a 5 day feels like a month in a good way of like the amount of the amount of rest you get, and 3 days can feel like a long time as well. It all feels like a long time. That's why we always say one of our rules is no watches on trip, and it's crazy how tied people are to the time. What time is it? And it's almost like the kid saying, "Are we there yet?"
Yeah.
Like, people want to know, but it's the mind that wants to know, so that they can do calculations based on if I'm tired, if I'm not tired, if I should eat, if I should not eat, and that we say that if you're ever hungry, just speak up, and you can have a snack or whatever. We got a barrel full of snacks and food. Plus, we'll also...
You say that again. They got a barrel full of snacks and food.
Yes,
they
we do.
They're prepared.
Lots of healthy and tasty snacks, nurturing, and then also like we based on the group we eat, and these are some of the things that are the biggest growth for, especially for people that are living that 9 to 5 corporate, etc. That they're saying, I'm so proud of myself that I didn't ask for the time for like we don't tell them the time, so like, but even asking for it, they might ask for it even though they're not going to get it, just hoping. And a lot of the times we're getting...
Did they get splashed if they ask?
Yeah. Depending, maybe.
Yeah, third time.
If they want it. Yeah. Third time you're soaker,
sleeping.
Yeah.
You're sleeping outside your tent.
Yeah. No bug now. Yeah.
No
in
bug.
May. No bugs now. But yeah, another one is I never thought that I could just eat at different times. Like I thought I had to eat at 6 or I was gonna die. I've been doing it so long, and so allowing for that. And it's not like we eat at 10, but if we're out, we might eat a bit later because we're paddling, and then we eat lunch at say 1 or 2 instead of 12, and then but we're having snacks, and it just gets people to feel safe outside their comfort zone. All these little programs that they feel safe, and scheduling that they need to survive in the real world, because you have to schedule things so that you can fit everything in. But on vacation, why schedule? Why schedule? Like, just play, be open, and especially when you hire us, we make your decisions for you about what's the most fun, and to create times for silence and solitude for yourself, and not say, okay, it's quiet time, but like it just naturally, organically happens. Someone crawls into the hammock and they're looking up at the trees, and all of a sudden they're out for an hour, and they get up and like, I didn't realize I was so tired. I didn't realize I needed that. I'm usually the go who never stops.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all these things that just quality time with the family. Like the guy that I was hanging out with yesterday, I took him and his wife and his 3-year-old on a trip about a month ago, and that was the thing that they really were stoked about, that it was just, they didn't have to worry about anything, and they just got to spend time together. And sometimes one would go off and take a nap, one would go chill by a tree or in the forest, one would go down by the water, and it's not like they're into nature, but it wasn't like they're very like crazy nature people, but it created that space for them to do so, and they'd have like quality time in the hammock, mom and son, dad and son, mom and dad, and I would hang out with the 3-year-old, like, hey, help me start this fire, like these kind of things. And so there's just so much opportunity for growth within yourself and within the group you're with. We also do trips where you just sign up and you're with like a bunch of strangers, and those are super cool. People keep in touch after, and it's not expected or anything like that, but it just naturally happens because you came together. Like you're saying about traveling, you're living your dream, a dream, a bucket list thing. You're outside your comfort zone where magic happens, and you build connections, and you also grow, and you take that back into the world, into your life. And my buddy Matt that I was hanging out with yesterday, that was on the trip, he says, you should start asking people what they're taking with them, what they're taking home. We do different debriefs, like what was your highlight, what was your learning, what was like the biggest challenge, or rock, stick, and leaf, what rocked you, what's going to stick with you, like that someone else did, and what are you leaving behind of yourself.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, but I really like that question. All of them bring up such amazing answers and thoughts, but really, like, nature is the perfect context for transformational change. Whatever you like, it meets you where you're at, and it really facilitates change that you didn't either, that you wanted or that you didn't know you needed.
That was amazing. Yeah, takes an hour and a half to really get to the juicy stuff.
Yeah.
I have so much to say on that. Like, you said rock, stick, and leaf. So
Yeah.
you said, what are you leaving?
Yeah.
And what are you shedding?
Yeah, what are you choosing to leave behind, you know?
Yeah, and
Self-doubt, just any of these things that you're holding on to that you didn't even realize you were holding on to.
And then you said, what are you rocking? Like, coming home.
I mean, the cool thing is that
I didn't catch the stick one.
yeah, no, I'll tell you both. It's like, you can use the word however you want. Like, rock is such a cool word. What rocked you on the trip?
Nice.
Like, what just blew you away? What rocked you? Or what did you rock? You know, what sign that you really kicked butt at that you were surprised? What's gonna stick with you? And and we open it up to, that's something else that someone else did that's gonna stick with you, that you did that's gonna stick with you, that you learned. It's like an opportunity for learning, or something just in nature, you know. Like, I never looked at trees the same, or the way that the birds were flying, or that were so nurturing, or the way the seagull protected the osprey from the bald eagle. Like, that's wow. Like, it really showed that we're all interconnected. All these things that are possible. And then there's other things that we do as school groups, like cool ones, like reach out and touch. So it's like you get everyone to come in a circle and face outwards, and then you bring groups of 3 into the circle at a time, and then the facilitator says, reach out and touch someone that made you laugh. And so get goosebumps. Yeah. And so the people will go. So it's like anonymous, because you don't know out of the 3, or maybe all 3 people touch you, you know? And so it's a cool thing, because you don't know who's touching you, but it feels great to be touched. It also feels good as the person to touch someone's back and be like I noticed you. And then also, like, it's an accountability thing where, like, maybe you didn't get touched too many times, and you'd like to be more of a person that makes someone laugh, and then that's something that you can work on in your life, you know. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know. Like,
that's amazing. Like,
yeah.
so who taught? Where did, like? That's amazing. I might have to borrow that. It's
yours.
That's so beautiful too. It reminds me of being in high school. We did a thing like that where we all had to write, I guess, one compliment for each person in the class, and then you would put them all together, and then each person would have like 20 of them, right? 20 sheets, and you would just, like, they're all stapled together, and it'd be like, Jeff is awesome. Jeff makes me laugh. Jeff's good at sports.
Cool. Like, you just pass it around and everyone does.
It's all anonymous.
Yeah.
But it's like 20 nice compliments of you, and they have 20 nice compliments, and it's from the whole class. So you had to write something nice about everybody. Like, that sounds like it's from, like, grade 1, but we did that in high school.
The thing is, like, we still have those inner children inside of us, you know, like, that we need to honor. Like, it's a must. That's the secret of genius, I think Aldous Huxley says, is to grow old without losing your sense of spirit, you know, like that inner child spirit, because it's something that's like programmed out of us, or not, but still in us, but like covered up, that it's not okay to be childish, you know. It's not okay to be like, it shows weakness, or it shows like, and it's I think it's changing. I think people are allowing themselves to be more free and childish, because like those things are amazing. I actually started.
No, keep going.
The thing about the neighbor thing is like, the fact that people live so close to each other and don't know each other, I think, is more detrimental than living away from people, and not having that connection. The fact that people are close in proximity but not connecting, I think, is very confusing to the psyche, to the inner child. And there's like a great art piece from a Burning Man, and it shows two humans, and it's good, like talking about a relationship that's like kind of breaking down, but also just two strangers that live close to each other. It's like two grown-ups sitting down back to back, and it's like made out of metal tubing, so you can see all through it, and it's two children inside,
Like looking at
facing each other, like holding each other's hand. And I think that couldn't be more true. Like when you, like even in Toronto, walking and you want to give someone a head nod or like smile at them, but it's like, it's
even that's hard
socially
sometimes.
deviant, you know. It's like it's looked at as like, oh, why is that person? Like,
why did that person just smile?
Yeah,
at me?
even though the person is like you could also think in that same moment, oh, like that was such a nice smile, but like, why did they do that? You know, like it's crazy. Like,
I like to do the wave.
Yeah.
Because I feel like the smile sometimes, like, it's not enough for me. Like,
Yeah.
Like you say hi and you do a wave.
Yeah.
And, like, because people I feel like react.
I like that.
More with the wave.
Mm-hmm. There's more intention, where it's less confusing for that person.
Yeah,
Like,
it's less
why
confusing.
Why are they smiling at me? Like,
Yeah.
whereas this, like, you're just saying hi, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We like don't wave enough. Yeah, you said so many great things. I don't know why I'm getting so giddy. It's just like,
Well,
you're a funny guy. And I said at the beginning of the podcast, I was like, I wanted to get more laughing.
Just like make fun.
Yeah. No, you said so many good things. You said something about like your clients, friends, whatever you call them, like who they went and lied down and they didn't even know they needed that.
Yeah.
And like I felt that when I was up north a couple weeks ago. We are like, how many times, like, I didn't even play chess once during the week with my uncle. We like really wanted to play chess, and it just never happened, because it's like, how many times were we just sitting at the beach, and like whether we were reading a book or we were all just lying there and just like shedding those layers, and we're like, I don't really want to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
I just need to like, it's so peaceful here. And like, so yeah, it's amazing when you don't even know what you need to get rid of, and like, or what's weighing you down. And yeah, what else did you say? Like, what that circle is beautiful to like tap people. Where did you learn those two things? Like, did you guys come up with that, or that sounds like something you learned in summer camp?
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
Like the rock, stick, and leaf thing, plus the circle thing. Like,
yeah, we've definitely picked them up along the way. And that's something that I'm super grateful for, is that when you're working in something that you're very passionate about, you tend to talk about it, and you tend to be surrounded by people. And so it's nice, as opposed to like working something that you don't really like doing it, but you're talking about it because it's like you're the only thing that you do, which is like the reality for a lot of people. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but like, it's important not to talk about work, is what I'm trying to say. But with our job, like, our lifestyle and our work kind of like go together. Like, I worked on a golf course before because I wanted to learn golf, but when I worked at the golf course, as soon as I finished working, I wanted to leave, so I stopped golfing. Whereas with this, like, I might come off of a canoe trip and pack out for my own trip, you know, and I love it because it's honestly just the context. Nature is so, it's just a place, you know. It's like it's just like a yoga studio, you know. You can go there for yoga and teach it, but then you can also go there and do whatever you want. You can play, and so I love going to nature. What were we talking about? It was talking about.
We're talking about I know. We were talking about you picking up those those two cool modalities.
Nice moves, nice memory moves. So yes, being able to be around people that I constantly get to cultivate knowledge in that area, which only makes me better at what I do. Yeah, but also helps me grow in my life.
That must be so cool. Like you're working and taking these people on an adventure. Like you're going on an adventure every time too, which is so cool. And like I'm just thinking about it a little bit. It's like a smaller version when I take people out on the dragon boat. And yeah, at first it was a little bit nervous, like sitting in front of everybody, and because I used to coach from the back of the boat, and you'd be just looking at all their heads, and it was kind of hard to. I didn't find it hard to at the beginning, like to instruct from the back, but then when I moved to the front and they looking at all their faces for the first time, it was a little intimidating. But I got used to it after a while, and then like started thriving with it, because you would kind of know who to talk to, and like who would give you something. And then I did a coaching from the back. Like I went back to where I started. I was like, oh, I hate this. Like I can't see anybody's face now. Like, this is not where it's at. And so
nice.
I think that's so cool though. Like your job, you get to take people on these adventures, and it's an adventure in itself, and just taking people back to the roots, and you never know what's gonna happen. And I mean, I kind of want to ask, have you ever been in a situation where like a huge storm came in, or you had to like, you know, you said you took a wilderness first responder. Did you ever have to like, because I imagine like you paddle out and then you stop at like an island or something, or part of Algonquin, you know, where there's no porta potty, or like, I mean, you must have first aid kits and like, anything. Like, or has it been pretty smooth? Like it's, you know, you're not taking people down waterfalls and White Rapids, so you take them to the destination, and you know the area. And, but is like anything jump to mind, or?
No, we've been fortunate, but we're also like very diligent on our safety protocols. My brother says it well. It's like the chances of you getting hurt back there are pretty much the same as like getting hurt like here.
With like people texting and driving.
All sorts. It's more so just the remoteness that creates the barrier. So we practice like just safety, being sure-footed. You know, look where you're walking. Fire safety. We're both wilderness first responders and lifeguards, and we recert every 3 years, and then we do like little things like circle check the site together, look for like dead hangers up above, like things that. And like, so it's also like it's teaching, because like they're gonna spend time in nature, and then they can look for things, and hopefully we're making campers out of people that they can go off and do this on their own in some regard. I mean, I've definitely been in some big storms, but like, you just learn how to. We know how to navigate them. You know, like we can tell when storms are coming in.
Right, and then you're like, we can't get to our destination. We have to like pull over here and set up tent.
Set up tarps, tents. You know, there's lightning protocols, etc. And it's part of the adventure. You know, it's actually a lot of fun, that kind of thing. I haven't been like. I mean, like I said, like a tornado.
Absolutely,
Yeah, it is. You know, I haven't been in a tornado or anything, but a tornado would suck right here. You know, anywhere. So that's kind of luck of the draw. But I have like a quote for it that nature teaches me a lot of wisdom and lessons. And so I was paddling recently, and I'm like, it's like a blue sky above me, and I'm enjoying the sun. I'm looking across, and seeing some like dark clouds, and like just feeling into myself and feeling like the resistance of being like, oh no, these clouds, like what's gonna happen, and like understanding, tapping into seeing like where is it coming from? Is it the safety side of me that's like we should get somewhere, or is it more like the resisting the moment now and worrying about the future? And so it was definitely not safety, because like the clouds are really far away, and there's no insane winds or anything like that, and they're like they come, yeah, but they're so far away. And so it was like the metaphor of being grounded in the moment, enjoying that sun on me, enjoying those clouds of part of my vista, and enjoying the water, etc. And then when you're anchored in the moment, if the winds of change do come, metaphorically and quite literally, then like you're naturally, you're like, your feathers will start ruffling and your wings will spread, and you'll cruise into the next moment without resisting leaving the sun, because you're not like, oh, I wasn't enjoying the sun. It's like, damn, that sun was nice, we're cruising now, you know. It's like you're enjoying the flow of life, and so that's like, that is very much applied to like day to day, where you're worried about what's gonna happen. Meanwhile, like your kid is eating at the table, and you're worried about this phone call that you might get, etc. Meanwhile, you could be like playing airplane with your kid, and any of those things. We're not going for a run because it might rain, or where you could go for a run, it's probably not going to rain. Or if you go and you get a bit of rain on you when you're running, like that feels nice. And yeah. So not living in fear, and more so just living in the moment and living with like hope and love.
Yeah, for sure. There's a ton of distractions when you're at your space, typically, and texting, emails, like doorbells, and I was even thinking back to like the laying on the beach thing. It's, I'm gonna take a rest, so I'm gonna lay down on this couch, right? Let's suppose that you live with people, and someone could come in the door and it's got a distraction, or you're looking around, you're like, oh, there's my computer over there, like gotta get to those emails.
Yeah.
And it's just, there's the clock, what time is it? And that was so funny when you said that. It's so true. Like, oh, what time is it? It's 7:30. Oh shit! Like I probably should eat something.
Yeah.
Like, how many times have I said that to myself? And I've gotten a lot better at, like, when I wake up in the morning, do I need to eat at this moment? Like, yes, if you're going out for a full day of working and you only have so much opportunity, like that's a different story. But like if you're working at home or something, and like, does your stomach and body, does it need substance right now?
Yeah.
And because like I told you, I ate that birthday cake, or what was it called, cotton candy ice cream, and like, which was a rarity for me, but like one of my favorite things. And for like, my stomach, like I'm like, I can't eat it. It's probably best for me just to fast right now and like just drink water and
just to get through this.
Yeah. But like, how often are we, like the timing thing, it's like, oh, it's dinner time, I should probably eat something. And I just got thinking about when you say corporate stuff too, like how much scheduling, like, when you live on, which is important, like if you got to have a lot of appointments,
it's a must,
it's a must. And when you're in that rhythm, like when you try and step out of that rhythm, like, you're just so in tune with like, what time is it? I need to know, like, my schedule, like I gotta be to bed at this time, and like I gotta eat at this time. And when you're able to, that's neat that you're able to tell them to put their watches in the water bag or whatever, and
leave them back. And we also tell them, we say we're not telling you what's for, we ask dietary ahead of time.
What's for dinner?
For anything. It's a surprise. And
surprises
are lovely.
I was gonna say CK flow. It's
CK flow.
Or C flow. I was thinking C flow. That works well.
Yeah.
Because you seem very spontaneous, and Yeah, surprises are very playful and mysterious.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I think a girl I was seeing a few years ago, when I was asking where she was from, I was like, wait a minute, like, let me guess, like, because this is fun. Like,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's playful, and we don't do enough of that.
That's cool that you did that.
Yeah.
It's really neat.
Yeah, keep people like on their toes a little bit. Like, don't just, in the one cultures, like, it's yes and no. Like, keep it simple. But like,
Yeah.
when there's opportunity for being playful and like to surprise people, like, that's, it's almost like it brings you back to Christmas or something. Like, and you're just, wow, what's in these boxes?
For sure, yeah. Like when I'm making food, at first I used to be like, oh, these people are really hungry. Where now, like, I'm realizing that it's like a cooking channel for them that they're involved in. They get to smell and they're like, oh my God, he's adding mushrooms now. Like, what's that about? And so they have no idea what it is. And I get to be playful. Like, what is it? It's like, I have no idea what I'm making right now. And to speak to the fact of, that culture being yes, no, but also they were the most playful people I've ever been around.
Yeah.
Like the grandfather Dennis, he was definitely a kid just in like a 75-year-old body. Like he would be rolling around with the kids. He would laugh more than anyone. Like, and same with the mom. Like they're amazing, but like they didn't waste time with these like pleasantries and like in the mind of, I should say this. What are they thinking about me now? Da da. All these. They're just like, they just move through it. What's the answer? Yes. Okay. Now we're on to just living. Like back to this. They use that mind, make that answer or intuition, and they're back at it. With people, like it's so cool to like get to know people from, like you were saying in your dragon boating. I'm sure you feel like at the end of some sessions, like that was so much fun. Like I want to do that again, but it's just like a one-time thing. Where that's why I loved working with Trails Youth Initiatives, because it was a consistency-based program. I felt like I get to see. Well, the difference is a must, but it's a byproduct of the consistency, and that's the same with on canoe trips. It's the consistency of like the shedding the layers, the relaxing of the nervous system. Like when you're speaking about being up at your uncle's place, of sitting on the beach and your nervous system finally relaxing. And in the corporate world and the scheduling world, sure you're disciplined to make those appointments, but still your nervous system is up. Like, am I gonna make it there? All right, or like you got an assistant to make sure you're gonna make it there.
Don't forget about that appointment. Yeah,
exactly. We're there. It's like, I don't need to play chess to feel relaxed. It's just nice to hang out and relax, but just relax. And scientifically, like everything's relaxing your nervous system. All that stuff is just, your blood's actually going to where it needs to go, because like if you're in parasympathetic state, like your blood literally shifts to like extremities for fight and flight, whereas when you're relaxed, like your blood goes to your organs and detoxifies. And there's a reason why we feel good.
Oh yeah, physiologically. Yeah, that's so true. And it's actually hard to relax in this culture. Like with, we should knock on every door and say like, okay, only one TV per house. And we'll buy like TVs from people, or we'll trade them like a piano for a TV or something. I said that once. Like I wish there was more pianos in people's houses than TVs. Or instruments. And like we've got like, I don't know, we don't have as many now, but we had more like growing up. We probably had like 5 or 6 TVs in our house. Like a TV in every, we must have TV in every room, TV in the kitchen, family room, each bedroom. Like everybody had their own TV. It's like, and
sign that you made it.
Yeah, and it's like that relaxing state, whether it's, I went to a yoga class last night. Nice. I felt it at the end of the class. And it was a very playful class because it was the teacher's last class. And it was at the Anne Green studio,
Beautiful, yeah, right downtown.
Oh, yeah, like with the view of Campbell Bay. And it was her last class. She's probably been there for like 15 years or something.
She's retiring? Or what?
I think she sold the business, so she's going to open up a different form of business.
Wow, so it was the owner.
The owner, yeah. So it was
Whoa.
like a pretty special class.
No doubt.
And even though it was like there was a lot more talking and laughter and playfulness in the class, the ending when we went into Shavasana, like, and it was like a good solid like 10-15 minute Shavasana. She like
beautiful.
said this speech and did some singing, and like, yeah, my brain went into that. I like you mentioned the parasympathetic, the nervous system states, but then there's also like like, correct me if I'm wrong, like if you know about it, like the different brain waves too. Yeah. Like before you're falling asleep or right when you wake up, like your brain's in a certain state.
Yeah.
You know, I know massages can help with that. Like I've been to massages recently where at the end, like you're just so relaxed that, and like yoga does that, you know, maybe a 20-minute stillness meditation, like whatever it is for you that you can bring your nervous system like to slow it down is amazing.
Yeah.
And I used to, that's what when I first fell in love with meditation, when I would just do it for 10 minutes. I would sit there and I would close my eyes and I would breathe for 10 minutes, and when my alarm went off at 10 minutes, it felt like I just woke up. Like I woke up from like a nap, or like I woke up from the morning, and it was just your body was. And it's interesting what you just said about like, I didn't know that, like obviously blood is going to different areas, and maybe this lady I was talking to, she said that about like CBD oil. I think like it's like you take it and it just knows where to go.
Yeah.
It's like you're not taking it because you have headaches. Like, yeah, sure, you might take it and it'll like do a thing in your head if that's where the headaches are being, what's causing it, or it'll just like go throughout your body and be like, oh, this area like has too much information.
It's got like intelligence in it.
Yeah, and like, and
wow.
Same with maybe what you're saying about whether it's being in nature for 3 days, like nature will provide that for you. And but yeah, physiologically, you said something about physiologically, like the blood will start going to certain organs or something.
Yeah.
Did you just say something?
Yeah, like so the sympathetic nervous state is like the relaxed state that like technically we should be most of the time, because you should be in fight or flight when like something's trying to kill you, or you need to get somewhere quickly.
It's like an appointment.
Yeah, exactly. So that's just full of, like, life's full of that. Well, that's why we think like, oh wow, it must be so scary to be an animal. But like, they're just chilling, and then they get into fight or flight when they're running for their life. And then after, you'll see even some animals like shake, and like that's like literally shaking back into sympathetic nervous state. And then they're just like back into chill zone, you know, like it's because they're also, their mind states are different. They don't have as much consciousness. Like they're very conscious creatures though. So it definitely helps. But still it's in functional medicine. A good friend of mine, Sachin, is a practitioner in that. And he speaks to the fact of that in a stressed parasympathetic state, 5% of your blood goes to your kidneys and liver, which is like your detoxifying organs. And in a stress state, or in a non-stress state, sympathetic, 50% of the blood. So that's 10 times more blood. And so when we were talking about diseases, you think of like your car, if like you restrict 95% or 90% or whatever of like the gas or the oil or whatever, what's going to happen? Like your car's going to run like crap, you know?
Yeah.
And we are just very advanced engines, you know, like, and so that's why anything, like your back's a little tweaked or whatever, you feel it, because, and we are he says as well, like we are our best specialists. We know that there's something up more than a specialist. We can tell the specialist, and then they're specialized in that area, but like we know when something's up. But like we like deal with a screwed up knee or whatever for like our whole life. But if you're like tires wobbling, you'd stop driving, etc.
Yeah.
And you'd go to a mechanic. But yeah, the blood thing is huge, and there's a lot of things that come with stress, just like tension and energy flow, like blockages, if that's a school of thought that you believe in. And then in nature is really fascinating. I just did a forest therapy walk with a good friend of mine named Brett. And he spoke to the fact that there's an energetic exchange when you go in there. If you're barefoot, there's an actual like electronic exchange, and then trees emit these things called phytoncides, and I like it because it sounds like fight inside, but it's like PHITON SIDES, and those things that they release allow them. They're like a protector, so that animals don't just eat their whole thing. You know, like they're just not consumed by nature, trees, because they emit these things. But by us being out in them, we ingest them, inhale them, and they improve our NK cells, which are our natural killer cells, which are part of our immune system, which also target tumor and cancerous cells. So you can see how everything is so symbiotic, and the reason why the forest therapy came to be was because the Japanese government launched a nationwide study because they just noticed that more people were getting sick and in hospital, and they're like, what's going on? And they found out that people weren't spending time in nature. And the beauty part of that conclusion is that it has no financial gain on the government, you know? They just like started making more parks, you know? Whereas I feel, unfortunately, in a lot of other areas, Western culture especially, that the answer always has to fit into the consumerism model. Oh, well, this is happening, so you need this pill, or like go to this, or sign up to this gym, you know, where it's like we have the ability to take care of ourselves, and nature is such a huge modality because we are nature.
Imagine you went to the doctors and you're like, yeah, I've been getting these headaches, and your doctor was like, oh yeah, I took a course called Shinrin Yoku, which you probably know that word. It's Japanese for forest bath.
Oh, like, is it?
Literally what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I read an article a long time ago, and then my friend got me a book. Yeah, Shinrin Yoku, I believe.
Shinrin Yoku.
Yeah. We better look that up after. I'm pretty sure that's how it's said.
Cool.
But it means forest bath, and that's a Japanese expression for exactly what you're saying. Is I didn't know all that stuff. That was some good stuff you just said there about the trees, and yeah, why are the animals not eating all of the leaves? Like,
yeah,
you know, that makes sense. That there's some maybe they're also providing that for the animals too, right? And if they have similar physiology or anatomy. And what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, imagine you went to the doctors, like, oh yeah, I took this course in university, Shinrin Yoku, and so like, yeah, go once a week for an hour, like go do a barefoot walk through the forest.
Yeah,
know? Like I do that every time I go for a run now. I go through the woods, and sometimes I go barefoot, sometimes I don't, and or going out on the water. And yeah, I just want to make sure, going through the woods, the forest bath is so, like, you feel so much better. There's like, that you could just breathe. Like, imagine if you lived in a very busy city and then went to the woods, like, there's a huge difference you could tell. I can tell it just living in a subdivision and then going through the woods. I always, like, for your mind. And yeah, I want to say a couple things. Like, there was an article I read about being on the water, and it said when a wave crashes, there was some scientific study that said like it actually breaks up the particles or something, and I'm not going to have to read the article, but basically it was doing something that increased oxygen like absorption or flow in your body when waves would crash, and it was breaking up the molecules in the air, and also something about, I guess, like negative ions, like the water releases these and like you're taking people on canoe trips, like if the water's releasing these negative ions, which are good for you, I believe.
Yeah.
You know, if you spend a lot of time in the water and you're getting that double whammy with all the trees, like I've never had a bad time on a drag-a-boat or on my paddleboard.
Yeah.
It's like, whether that's with people I've had a good time, or when I go out I've gone paddleboarding usually by myself, and at times I'm like, oh, I should probably text someone, like, and go with a group, right?
Yeah.
Which is fun too, but like most of the time I just go on my own.
Yeah.
And it's like, even when you're out there, you're like, oh, I should probably like paddle over those people and like join them or something. But it's like, you don't need to.
No,
It's
exactly.
Like, it feels so good to, and then you come back and you're like, wow, I'm so glad I did that.
Yeah.
And yeah, that article was cool about the water. It said even the color of the water, like the color blue, is supposed to be calming, right? So it's we feel calm when we hear the waves. And yeah, there was so much to it. I thought it was so neat. So spending time in nature, like, you know, instead of the doctor, and maybe some doctors will say that, like maybe some naturopaths or other doctors, like medical doctors would what would you call them? I'm sure there's many doctors that also would say, hey, like, how much rest are you getting? Like, do you need, they might, you know, they usually only have so much time with a person, and like how much time do they have to get to know their clients or patients. But yeah, like for me, and I'm sure for you, like even back to that question of how do you check yourself, like we were talking about that, like every time I go for a run, like I'll be crunching numbers and like thinking about stuff. Like I like to laugh at myself where I have to do a task, whether it's message somebody or write an email, and there's some sort of resistance. It's just like very small, but I have to like look at it from a bird's eye view. I'm like, why am I resisting that? Like,
yeah.
And sometimes you don't know right away, and you have to like look at it, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm like, because it's not part of my people pleasing thing, or it's like it's not the right moment, or whatever it is. But it's cool to notice that resistance, and then sometimes you're like, okay, I need a break, I'm gonna go for a run, and because I'm indecisive about something, and then you just go for a run, whether it's in the woods or you go for a walk, and like your brain's just like it just like it settles down, and you're like, oh yeah, thank you.
That's
like,
what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, and it happens a lot during a shavasana and yoga. I've always, anytime I had to do a presentation, I would always go to a yoga class, like if I could, or do yoga at my house. Like you went for a cold shower before this conversation.
Yeah.
It's like I would always do that before, because an idea would come to me, or like things would make sense. So yeah, there's so many of those modalities that I love talking about, because it's so, nature is so helpful. Like I've never heard that before about the trees giving off those fight insides, or whatever you said.
Yeah, fight insides. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I just learned it recently, like last week, 2 weeks ago. It's pretty spectacular.
Last thing, and then
yeah, please. Yeah.
I read the book by Tolle. What's his first name? Eckhart Tolle. I think The Power of Now, or A New Earth. It was A New Earth, I think. And he talked about nature being this organized chaos, I believe is how he put it. And if not, that's how I'm putting it, I guess.
Yeah.
And you go into nature and it's like not symmetrical. Some things are, but it's like, and it's like there's this rhythm and flow to it, and it works. But it's very simple, but also complex at the same time.
Yes.
There's so many little things happening. If you looked at a ladybug and took 30 seconds to just watch that ladybug, like, what is it doing? Or that bee like pollinating the flower, like it's that observing nature is something that's been big to me recently. And he also said, when you're in a city and you're looking around, everything's very symmetrical. It's all like a human construct. Humans have like designed this, like the roads, it all like makes sense, and it's like, but it's too rigid. It's like it doesn't leave room for imagination and flexibility, unless you're in like Spain. I don't know if you ever went to Barcelona, but there's I forget the artist. He was an architectural artist, I guess, but his buildings like looked like they were melting, and so they weren't symmetrical. And like obviously it's a lot cheaper, I guess, and simpler to build square and box. but for the mind, that's why going in nature is also really freeing, I think, and allowing you to unwind and be flexible and not feel like you're in a box. Because when you're driving on your road, especially in like Switzerland, I don't know if you Switzerland, it's like everything is so lined up perfectly.
Yes.
It's like too good to be. It's like which is awesome.
Yeah.
But it's important to remember, like, we're not designed to be that restricted, and you have to have a flow, and nature helps with that, and allowing things to like cycle and change. And it's not, nature's not concrete. Like,
I can agree more. It's imperfectly perfect.
exactly. Yeah, which is neat. Good combos.
Yeah.